your hand so everybody can see everybody that can see who you are. And if I share anything that is inaccurate or that doesn't go far enough, please feel free to jump in. Pardon me. I'm going to start with Dr. Sarah Stombaugh. Sarah is a family medicine physician and a diplomat of the American Board of Obesity Medicine. And after earning her medical degree from Creighton University and completing her residency at the University of Chicago, she practiced outpatient primary care in Evanston, Illinois, before relocating here to Charlottesville. Yay! Here she opened a practice, a private weight loss practice clinic where she offers both in-person consultations and telemedicine services for patients here in Virginia and still back in Illinois. And in addition to her clinical work, she is the host of the Conquer Your Weight podcast. I've been on it. It's a great podcast, sharing expert insights and practical advice on weight management. Through both her practice and podcast, Dr. Stombaugh is dedicated to empowering individuals and the medical community with an evidence-based approach to treating obesity. Welcome. Did I leave anything out?
That was perfect. Thank you so much.
Great. So next I will move on to Nicole Hawker. Nicole, you'll recognize as one of our Women of Excellence here at the BWRT, and she is the founder of Heart and Soul Fitness. It's a Charlottesville native. She's a Charlottesville native committed to making fitness and wellness accessible to all. She has a master's degree in professional counseling from Johnson University and over 15 years of experience in the foster care system. Nicole integrates her expertise in counseling and community engagement with her passion for fitness. An ACE certified personal trainer, group fitness instructor, and certified yoga teacher, Nicole has played an active role in her community. She is a graduate of Leadership Charlottesville, class of 2019, and the CNE Board Academy, class of 2023, and has served on various nonprofit boards, and she currently is part of the executive committee of the Chamber of Commerce as secretary. Her mission is to empower individuals and strengthen the community through wellness and service. Welcome, Nicole. Did I leave anything out?
I think that's a lot already. So thank
I'm
you.
telling y'all, we have very qualified panelists here. This is going to be a really good discussion. And finally, and last but not least, we have Nancy Zamel. Am I saying your name correctly?
Perfect. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Nancy is a registered nurse with a master's degree in public health and a background in hospice and home care. She was a Peace Corps volunteer and she is now a Reiki master. Nancy is board certified as a transformative nurse coach through the American Holistic Nurses Association. She partners with clients to address their health and wellness concerns, including guiding them through end-of-life care decisions. That's some good and tough work. Passionate about the body's natural ability to heal, Nancy has integrated holistic modalities into her nursing practice throughout her career, and her focus is on empowering clients to take control of their well-being through transformative, personalized care. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you so much.
Did I leave anything out?
I'm just in awe of the other two members. I'm appreciative to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Oh, good. So we're going to start off like I shared before we hit record here that I have a long list of questions. We don't have to get through all of them. Several will just be some like general panel discussions. If you as listeners have questions, I'm not looking at whether or not you're raising your hand. We don't want to cut off people from having conversation, but Ariel can pop in or Nadira can let me know that you may be raising your hand to ask a question. Feel free to do so, but also put questions in the chat and we'll take a couple of stops in the process and check the chat and see what kind of questions people have come up with. But for our panelists, if you would go ahead and unmute yourself, that way we can easily have conversation here. We want this to be a little bit more open and free flowing, if I can actually get my words together there. Since this is a loving yourself panel, I'd like to know, what does it look like for you, these amazing experts? What does it look like to be loving yourself right now? Nicole, why don't you start us off?
Oh, wow. I think the big thing when it comes to loving myself is truly taking some time to slow down and rest. Um, and I have started listening to some affirmation-based music that really speaks into what does it mean to care about myself and to honor myself and to take care of myself. And just to be able to learn how to set boundaries with my time and with the people that I allow to really get close to me. So that's a really big one that I've really had to start learning recently, is just setting that time where I start to focus in on what is it that I need to be able to thrive and to flourish, and then how do I set boundaries to kind of protect that time and to protect kind of my feelings and emotions in that process.
So it's very internal work.
Yes,
Giving
a lot
yourselves,
of
yeah,
internal
okay.
work. Yes.
Yeah. Nancy, what does it look like for you right now?
One of the blessings of being a Reiki master is to do self Reiki.
Hmm.
And that's part of my daily practice. In order to go up the program, you have to do a certain amount of self-care so you know what it's like for your clients. So I do that. I do yoga, meditation, and again, boundaries are very important for whoever we are to take care of ourselves, to let us know where our limits are, and to let people know when they cannot step on our limits.
Mm, yes, that's really, really good. Really briefly, we could potentially get into this later, but for anybody who may not know exactly what Reiki is, can you give us
Oh,
like a 30-second?
okay, real quickly, let's do the clinical end. Reiki is an energy healing, and what the studies have found, it activates the part of the nervous system called the parasympathetic, which allows the body to rest and heal at a cellular level. It is good for body, mind, and spirit, pain control, and whatever issues you have is usually able to be relieved with Reiki. And mostly it's stress reduction I work with.
Okay. That's actually probably the most concise and the best description I've ever heard. So thank you.
Okay,
For
so one more
somebody,
thing, pain and
okay.
pain control and pain control.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I think that knowing that you're dealing with the parasympathetic nervous system, that actually makes a lot of sense, actually. So thank you. That was great. Sarah, how are you loving yourself right now?
I think it's really important for me to find what brings me joy in my life and leaning into, we'll talk about self-care, I'm sure, but leaning into what are the things my body needs, what are the things that my body wants, and then what are the things that every day bring me joy. And really turning that lens on joy and seeing it in my children, seeing it in nature, seeing it in, the pause or the deep breath or the cup of tea, all of these things that just allow me that moment to be very much in the present and experiencing joy is, I think, my favorite way to practice self-love right now.
I like that. And when we think about the everyday things that are happening, we just talked about all the schools that were closed because of because of snow and that kind of thing. But surely now with children, loving yourself probably looks different now than it looked even 10 years ago. How would you define moving through those stages for you? Have you seen a definition for you moving through some of these stages of life?
Absolutely. I think having children, so I have three children, they're 2, 4, and 6.
Mm.
And there was this really big my oldest son was born the day before my residency graduation. And so for those who aren't familiar with medical training, you go through medical school and then residency, and then you start your attending job thereafter. And we had sort of planned it that way. But it was also interesting because having children aligned then with other, major changes in my life. And so looking at how I practice self-care, what that meant in terms of time available for me versus time that was dedicated to work versus time that was dedicated to children, and seeing, I think initially sometimes even just carving out time for basic self-care, like taking a shower, for example, or getting adequate amount of sleep, not even any of the like I don't want to say indulgent, but like going for pedicures or that type of thing. Like just the very basic, am I getting a shower every day? Am I getting adequate sleep? Am I nourishing my body with, food and drinks and all of that? And so recognizing that, I love that both Nicole and Nancy mentioned boundaries. Where are the boundaries for my personal life, for my family life, for my professional life? Where do I fit in that picture? And I think there's had to be a very specific intentionality, because without any intentionality, it's easy for like life just gets away and the days fly by and you're not getting enough sleep and you're not paying attention to what you need. And so it's had to be a really intentional focus on what it is that I need, and then what it is that, before I can even address things like the joy, for example. And so as I've
Mm.
gotten into some of those routines, our family life has changed, adding more children, but also finding more control, finding more work in coaching and other stuff that I've done to see where do I have these separate areas of my life and am I fulfilling each of those?
Yeah, and I'll bet it's, for those of us who maybe have even further journeys, it's going to look a little different. Nicole, how do you define looking at different stages of your life? I mean, you actually work with people in the physical health and wellness area, right? And so how would you define loving yourself through the different stages?
Yeah, so we are, as far as a stage of life, we are moving quickly into the grandparent stage of life. Our
Oh, but
children
that
are,
sounds fun.
it is, I'm so excited. But our children are 30, 25, and 22, and we have a grandbaby that's on the way, a little girl. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to get my hands on her. Um, and so, really what does that look like as my kids have gotten older is learning that now that my kids are adults, that some of those boundary settings, some of that even taking care of myself means that I have to take my hands off and I have to allow my children to be adults, allow them to do um, and to make adult decisions, and which sometimes means that they are going to experience some very adult consequences. And so for me as a parent and kind of navigating through those stages of life, sometimes it can be difficult because I want to take control. I want to put my hands back in. I want to fix it. But in order to help me to kind of find that balance and boundaries is that I do have to kind of back up a little bit and allow my kids to go through what they need to go through as adults, but then know that I'm going to be there to support and to help and to encourage if needed. And so that is also helping to take some of the stress away because it's really easy for us as moms, I think, to want to rush in and fix and to take care of. And then that creates more stress and more that we take on. And so it's been very helpful for me to kind of back up a little bit. But then, as you were saying, navigating some changes as far as shifting from being a social worker slash therapist now into group fitness, that it's some of that is still in play from the standpoint of we're still navigating emotions and feelings, but now we're doing it through physical fitness. And even the same of just helping folks to kind of experience their own choices in what workouts they choose to do, how they choose to work out, the intensity of the workout, and then still being there to support and encourage as they are making their own life choices. As it relates to group fitness, health and wellness and that sort.
Cool. Um, Nancy, you were a Peace Corps volunteer.
Yes.
And I mean, so it sounds like you've got some different stages in your life as well. How would you define the different stages of life and how you're looking at loving yourself through those different stages? What does that look like for you?
It is really different. I don't have any children.
Hmm.
Um, but through every stages is kind of through our own growth and development, and each stage is trying to figure out what my needs are and what's important to me. And the interesting part of nursing education is we are taught to be in control.
Mm.
We are the expert. We are the one who knows everything. And one of the things that struck me in my nurse coaching class is we're not the expert. The client is the expert. And we need to take ourselves out of it in order to allow them and partner with them to make their own mistakes, as well as not tied to the outcome because it has nothing to do with what I do. What it has to do is the role that the client, the patient takes. And no matter how long it takes, if they choose to learn, that's up to them. If they choose not to follow the goals that they set for themselves, it's up to them. And that's very empowering as I get older, just be able to let go.
Well, and that's a kind of a common theme is letting go of certain things here and being able to say, that's part of my self-care, right? Is to let go of things as part of my self-care. It's like, don't put stress on me that I shouldn't take on. But Nancy, do you have any specific health and wellness goals for yourself right now?
Actually, yes, I do.
Are you
Um,
comfortable sharing?
this is just, I was in an accident last year and involved some broken bones and some other things. And my nephew is coming to visit in September. And my health and wellness goal is to get on the treadmill and do 4 miles and head up the Monticello Trail. So
Oh,
that's
Yay!
a big
wow.
one for me. I
That is
just found out
awesome.
last week that he's coming, and so that's going to be great for us to do because we used to hike all the time, but since being in the accident and healing myself, then yeah.
Well,
That's
and I think that's a
awesome.
good point too, to recognize that sometimes our health and wellness goals or self-care or loving ourselves changes based on some circumstances that have nothing
Right.
to do with the transition of life.
Mhm.
And being able to say, because when each of you or even me as a coach, as we work with clients and we talk to people, even as experts in our field, we need to be able to ask them what their goals are, and we kind of need to know what that should look like, right? So that's
Mhm.
why we ask ourselves. But Nicole, do you have any specific health and wellness goals right now?
Oh gosh, I feel like just getting up every day. No, I would say a big one for me is I'm looking at the possibility of doing a third marathon later this year. And so, oh, I saw Ariel get so excited just for a second. Um, so that would be one of my goals is to potentially do another marathon later this year. But for me right now, because I do a lot of coaching, part of my health and wellness goal is to keep myself healthy and well so that I am able to help women to accomplish some of their goals. And so we are also looking at doing another round of a training program for the Charlottesville Women's 4 Miler. And so that will kind of play into how I'm able to accomplish my particular goal for later in the year, because that training
Awesome.
program will start later this summer. And so my focus really is on keeping myself at a certain level so that I can also be able to give and have that energy to be able to pour into other women reaching their goals later this year.
Cool. Cool. Sarah, how about you?
Yes, right now I'm actually really working on my strength and doing resistance training. I am a very active person. It's such a big part of my daily routine to get outdoors and go for walks, and connecting with nature is so important for me. And so that's something I've really continuing to incorporate, but recognizing that strength training is so important. And all of my patients know I'm always, are you doing strength training? Are you building your muscles? Are you protecting your muscles? And making sure that I'm doing that as well. And we know that as in midlife, really starting in our 40s, our muscle mass can really start to deteriorate. And so when I think about the rest of my life, I call my old lady goals. I want to live to 100 years old. I want to be strong. I want to be traveling in an airplane and, lift my luggage up ahead of
Mhm.
me. And the way to do that is to focus on it now and continue up that habit. And so I've really been leaning into that, actually probably over the last 6 months or so, but it's been a fun goal to work towards.
And that's nice. I love that. I have an adopted son that came into my life at 42. And so I said, well, if I'm going to be around for grandbabies, there's things I need to do to make sure, because he's only 16 now. So, so I have a
Mhm.
ways to go before I hit the grandbaby stage, Nicole. But I get that. It's like the ability to be strong. And I
Mhm.
think it's really important to point out that not many of us have these. I mean, even if you want to run a marathon, it's not like we want to be 50 milers. It's not like we necessarily want to be the strongest woman alive or anything, but we do want to be healthy and well. And as we reflect back on our journeys, you've all kind of answered this to a certain extent, but is there anything you left out, maybe, Sarah, on how your approach to this has changed over the last 10 years? Is it just that you're focusing a lot more on what the future might look like? Because when we're younger, we tend to not look necessarily at the future, right?
Mhm. Well, I think it's an intentionality and it's a planning. I mean, there's certain parts of, when I look at how I fuel my body, how I connect with my body, I think this piece of how well connected are we with our bodies? What is it that my body is asking for, whether it's movement, whether it's nutrition, whether it's sleep, whether it's stress management? How am I supporting my body? And I think actually paying attention to that rather than just letting life happen to me, but instead leaning into what are my unique needs? Am I meeting those? And are there places where I'm absolutely not? And because there's times in my life where I was more sleep deprived and, not functioning at my highest capacity, whether that was because of weird work hours or because of children. Just say I really love sleep. And so like by default, it would have been my preference to just, be adequately sleeping every night. But times where that had slipped by the wayside. And so really this turning intention to how am I getting these things? Am I fueling my body with real food versus is it like a granola bar and a cheese stick on the go? How am I actually caring for myself in a way that will support me both now and in the future? And I think some of it was just like life happened to me and now it's more of an intention.
Mm.
Mhm, mhm.
Nancy, it sounds a little bit like she's speaking to some of the work that you do,
Uh-huh.
especially, so how would you say that maybe the way you've looked at it over the last 10 years, and even specifically in your current situation where your body is really working on healing, that's probably where most of your energy is focused. As you talk about energy, how does that look for you? Like, do you look more towards the future, or are you still just kind of very much in the present?
I'm very much in the present. I'm looking at things instead of, you know, growing up, we're supposed to have great big goals, and that doesn't work.
Mm,
So one of the things I learned over the years are small steps, small incremental goals that I can say, oh, I can do that. I can say right now, I'm up to 3 miles a day on the treadmill. And when the weather gets better, it's off I go to Monticello Trail.
mhm,
And I'm plant-based. I've been vegan for like 30 years, so I feel that my diet's okay. But taking the time to do the yoga and the meditation and making sure I do my self Reiki every day is very empowering for me.
cool. Um, Nicole, you've talked about the transition between being in the counseling space and such, and then now into the actual physical workout type group coaching space. Are there specific challenges that you might see in balancing wellness with family, career, and other responsibilities that have kind of shown up for you and that other people, maybe your clients, are facing?
Yeah, I do want to answer that question, but I also want to kind of go back to the question that you had just a second ago of just are there things that we and I'm not going to say it the way that you said it, but just if there's
Is it
something
okay?
that we kind of left out along the way. And one of the things that I, try to share with my clients, even as I'm working with them now, is that there was a period of my life that I was not what I would consider very active or healthy, and definitely not living a well-rounded life.
Mm,
If someone had asked me to just kind of walk a couple, 100 feet to the grocery store, to the market, or wherever, it would have been no, that's not necessary. That's not something that I can do. And so what I made the decision to do in 2019 is after my mom passed away, I made the decision to kind of get my own health in order. And so part of that process of getting my own health in order was I did have weight loss surgery. And so by having that surgery, it helped me to be able to start making better choices as it related to what I was going to do with myself physically and then also what I chose to eat. And so part of working with clients and working with members when they're coming into the gym is I do not hide any of my story per se. And when clients come in and they ask, what are my thoughts and opinions about nutrition, I'm always very quick to say, let's talk to a dietitian, let's talk to a nutritionist, let's get those other professionals involved. And if someone says, well, what are your thoughts about medical weight loss? Again, what would your doctor say? How would your doctor help you navigate that conversation? But if they ask me questions about my own personal journey, I am not going to hide that piece of my story, but I'm also not going to, obviously, I'm not going to use that as an opportunity to say, thou shalt not, whatever it is that they come in with, because I want people to realize that they have their own personal journey and what is it that they need to be able to get to that next level in life. And so I want to make sure that each individual person is heard and listened to, and then it's given the tools and whatever it is that they need to kind of help them process their next step.
I like that. And we have similar journeys. I too have had weight loss surgery. So I understand the challenges there, and it isn't for everyone. But it's really good to know that you've put yourself in a position where you are now making lifestyle choices every day that will aid in you staying healthy, right? It's like now you're doing it
Absolutely.
for a business.
Yes.
And I'm sure that was a little bit of your, was that part of your wellness journey, was to decide to do group wellness like that, or?
Um, Sort of. Actually, it's a much longer story than we have time for.
Okay.
But I will say in 2012, I was a stay-at-home mom. I was not active, not doing anything. And that is when I started my just working out essentially. I got into doing CrossFit in 2012 and then became a CrossFit coach in 2013. And then just year after year, just really fell more in love with helping and supporting, especially stay-at-home moms and women who would not go into a traditional gym per se, to be able to work out. And then fast forward to 2022, when I was working local foster care and adoption, just burnout and not in a good space. And one of my kids said, "Mom, why don't you do something different?" And so at 50 years old, I decided to do something different. So I took my love for working out and love for mental health and decided to bring them together. And that is kind of the very quick version of how we opened the gym.
Cool. Cool. Well, before we move into some questions about life transitions and challenges, I wanted to just see if anybody so far has any questions that they would like to ask. I noticed there's nothing in the chat. I know part of it is that these ladies are giving really, really good answers, but is there anybody that has any specific questions that they might want to ask before we move on to some new questions? And no is okay.
I actually
Yeah.
do. I don't
Oh,
know. I
go
was
for
trying
it.
to find the raise hand button, but just going
We can see your hand.
all natural. Yeah, so I am really loving, Nicole, your comment about emphasizing seeking out like professional advice, right? Because it is so individualized. And so I'm curious from each of the panelists, how have you guys all navigated outside perspectives or all of the noise when it comes to your own journeys and your health and wellness journey?
Nicole, you want to start since she
Sure.
called you out?
I am very excited to say that I believe I have met Sarah before, but I'm sure we will continue to connect because I think that we would do well networking. So I think that that's one of the ways, Nadira, to answer your question, is just really seeking out who is out here already doing the work that I know is outside of my own scope of practice, so to speak, and just really start networking and making those connections, especially for my clients. And then as far as myself personally, really just doing the same. It started for me from a wellness perspective. It started by just meeting with my primary care doctor, who is also my mother's doctor before she passed away, and just having those really honest conversations of this is where I am and this is where I want to be. For me, I wanted to be able to, at the time, I wanted to be able to walk and run a 5K without feeling like I was not going to make it. And so now here we are, talking about marathon number 3. And so it really was about how do I start to make those personal changes for myself. And then as I started making more personal changes, it's a lot of fun to be out and to walk and to see other people make those changes, and to be able to watch other women accomplish their goals. And so it's really about just networking and getting outside of myself.
Thank you. And Nancy, I want to make sure that I understand Nadira's question is basically, it's one thing for us to, as experts, to point people in the direct, like when people work with me, I point them to counselors because I'm a coach and I don't necessarily, when we get into certain aspects of work, I point them to a counselor or to a doctor. But I heard a little bit of that question, Nadira, check me if I'm wrong. Maybe in your own personal journey, how did you know who to talk to and when to get professional help and when it was just personal choices? Is that part of it, Nadira?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Nancy, because you also have some extra,
It's
you've done a
it's
lot
I'm a
of
little
certifications
bit
as well.
I'm a little bit different because I am a nurse, and so I have a way of being able to traditionally take care of myself as well as using the holistic point. I know what I can do, what my limits are, and always refer myself out for my coaching practice. I'm in the coaching mode. I'm not in the RN mode. And I know what's within my scope of practice, and I have a list of people that I do refer to.
How about you, Sarah? It sounds like going through residency. I mean, I worked for 25 years in the academic medical field, so I know what it's like to watch residents and fellows and 80-hour weeks and that kind of thing. But I'm sure it's easy, and even as maybe an obesity physician, for not only to be completely bombarded with all the options and ideas and everything. How do you
Mhm.
navigate some of that, especially as you were trying to have children through your residency and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so much of it for me was the really the mental health piece that came to a head in my early attending years, and this transition of residency to attending life. There's also, often this conversation of how work hours will get better, and in some ways they do and in some ways they don't. And as I shared earlier, I had my son right as I finished residency, and so I had a few months off before I started my first attending job. And it was a challenging transition because I now had a young child, and I also had pretty long work days. I typically would leave my home at about 7 o'clock in the morning, get home 5 or 6 o'clock, kind of depending on the day. I would do that Monday through Friday and worked every other Saturday as well. And I found myself in this position where I was just working so hard that all of the knowledge that I have, like you can know what's a healthy diet and what's the kind of movement you should get and what's the amount of sleep that you need to get. And there's only so many hours in the day. You can't make more time in the day. You've got 24 hours. And so a big part of it was just really challenging. I wasn't able to take care of myself in the way that I wanted to. And so I had sought some coaching with a group of other women physicians. And it was such a big transition for me because I started seeing where I was so empowered and had the ability to make choices. It's led to, as we moved here, the decision to open my own private practice and decide and create this life that I really want, because what I was doing before was not sustainable. And you've got these 24 hours and you've got kids and you're trying to eat a certain way and move your body and sleep. And it just, I don't know that I could have done it in 30 hours per day. And
Mm.
so recognizing that there were others who had gone through similar things, that there were people who could support me, and leaning into getting that type of support really opened up a whole world for me where I felt empowered. I felt like I could make decisions and that I could create a life that I really loved and still was very personally and otherwise professionally enjoyable.
Yeah, I like that. And you've mentioned a couple of times eating certain ways and getting
Mhm.
specific types of amounts of rest. And let's move into some of these life challenges and transitions. It's a great segue there, because as an obesity physician and coach, how do exercise and nutrition needs change from different stages of life? Because I know they're different. And
Mhm.
especially like let's speak to nutrition changes and or nutrition needs and exercise needs for the different, like I know where you are now, but it's going to be different later. What do you see as far as across the spectrum, what our needs are
Absolutely.
maybe
Well, I
differently?
think when we look at metabolic health and we think about just what is metabolism, if you look at babies, they have these metabolisms that are through the roof. And, in some ways that declines slightly, but really through grade school and teenage years, kids and teenagers have huge metabolisms, which you can all remember back to your own lives or children's lives if you have them. Like, oh my gosh, how much teenagers can eat
Right.
and,
It's
still
scary.
sometimes live in these tiny bodies. It's wild. Like, and then it's pretty stagnant if we look at metabolism from about 20 till 60, and then our metabolism really starts to change after that period of time. There's also a lot of hormonal fluctuations that happen, particularly for women, but even for men as well, especially with menopause. But we can see that at other times, particularly around pregnancy or trying to conceive, or for women who have conditions like PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. So, all that to say, I think one of the things that's most important is really leaning into what our own body is asking for and what our own body's needs are. I think, especially in our current culture, we are so taught to look at diet plans or calorie counting or macro counting. And those things sometimes have value in a very specific situation. But a lot of times we're so focused on looking externally that we don't look at internally at what our body needs. And so learning about what are the foods that fuel my body, that make me feel strong, that make me feel energized, that are helping me to maintain my health goals, whatever those are, those type of things I think are so much more important because when you can tap into that skill set, whether you are in your 30s or your 50s or your 80s, there can be adjustments that you may need support with those and working with a nutritionist or physician or a health coach or whomever it is on your team, but leaning into my body has needs that I'm going to work to address.
Oh, Nancy, it looks like you're ready to hop in.
Yeah, and it's just on a personal and professional aspect is it's very important when you're working schedules like we both did with working. I did call, like Sarah, I did call, I did whatever. Sometimes my weeks were 60 hours a week. And to take that time after working, doing your own research and working with a dietitian and working with your primary care physician to find the meal planning that works for you. And for me, I was in the car. And so I had to make sure that I always had little things that I could eat as I was driving down 64. And being vegan, it's a little bit extra challenge. So I designed some of my own meals. And if anybody needs any additional information, please feel free to contact me on how to eat on the run
As a vegan.
as a vegan.
Yeah. Nicole, with the work that you do with family and wellness, that kind of thing, do you have any specific advice for women going through transitions like maybe motherhood or menopause as far as the way we exercise? And Sarah mentioned hormonal fluctuations and all kinds of things like that. Do you have anything that you might offer to us as some advice?
Sure. So some of that does get outside of my scope of practice, so to speak. But just as was mentioned earlier, that as we age, especially women, we do need to take care of our muscle and bones. We do hear a lot of, I think earlier we heard a lot, earlier years, we would hear a lot about our grandparents, our mothers falling and, hurting themselves. And I think a lot of that is because there was a time where for women, we were taught that we should not lift weights, that we should not build muscle, that we should only do cardio. Those are very outdated thoughts and processes, so to speak. And as we get older, we definitely should be lifting weights. We should be strength training. We should be building our muscles and bone density and all of that. And so I think those are some of the things that I would add for my clients is that to not be afraid of lifting weights. When people come into the gym, that is one of the first things that they learn is that, yes, we are going to lift weights, that we are not here to just do, 60 minutes cardio, which is great every now and then. But we truly need to be building that muscle. I have ladies come in and say, well, I only want to get toned. And I'm like, great, that's going to happen when we lift weights. And so, so I think that is one of the big things that I share with folks. And then even, going through menopause, we talk about how, we're tired, we're lethargic, we're not sleeping, all of those things, putting on extra pounds, all of the things that tend to come with menopause that we also, we have to think about, well, what is it that we need to do different? And I think, Sarah mentioned what we put in our bodies, what we're eating, and being very mindful of looking at, well, what are you eating? And then are there some times where maybe you need to kind of do what I call some, and not fasting from a complete getting rid of everything, but there may be some things that you might need to stop eating to see how it's affecting your body. Like, for example, dairy products for me, create a lot of inflammation in my body. And so I don't drink cow's milk. And so, looking at how are the things that we're eating impacting how we feel, and how is it impacting our joints? How is it impacting our gut? And so again, that gets a little outside of what what I am supposed to be navigating. But what I do is I help folks to just kind of let's look at what you're eating, and then let's think about what if we were to make some shifts or changes just to see how that's impacting your body. And then if we need to dive a little bit deeper, then again, that's where we will start to do some referring out to get a more medical approach to what's happening. But yeah, we have to be lifting weights, ladies. It's okay.
Could,
It's
could I
It's
just,
okay to be strong.
I just want to give one quick testimonial to this. Hi everyone, my name's Allison. My mother had, walks 30 minutes every day of her life. She just turned 79. She manages a variety of different health conditions, all incredibly well. Like, she gave up alcohol, sugar, caffeine. So there's a lot she does really well. But what was never really available to her in her mind was strength training and resistance training. She is 79 and building muscle that everybody would have said was not available to her, feeling better. I mean, she is, people, some of y'all know her and have watched her on Facebook. Girl is reverse aging. And there is no magic to it other than, well, she likes living in Charlottesville. She's no longer dying of caregiving, of
Mm.
taking care of my dad. That's passed and we've recovered from that. But anyway, I just want to say, like, literally, no one would have thought my mother could build muscle, right?
Mhm.
Or most of all, her. And it's been incredible to watch a level of strength and flexibility and comfort come into her life at 79. So I
Beautiful.
just, you know, it is never, ever, ever too late.
Right. I love that. And Allison, to your point, part of that is even just embracing our bodies. And this is a little bit of what Nicole touched on. It's like we think we're not supposed to do strength training because it's going to make us bulky. It's like we just don't have enough testosterone to get bulky, right? But I'm not the panelist. But I'd love to know from Nancy, is there something that you work with women as a transformative nurse when we look at how we're embracing our body through different changes and transitions? Is there anything that you do with women to help them embrace that?
Well, a lot of it is individual, and to see what their goals are and what they wish to accomplish, and based on that is how I approach my coaching. So I'm not someone who's going to say do this, this, and this. It is something that it will be individual to the person.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak to that? How you help your clients and how we can actually embrace our bodies through the transitions as we age?
I think the first thing is just acknowledging that, especially as women, that we come into this space many times with having certain feelings and emotions about our own bodies. I think that it would be easy for me to sit here on this panel and say, and to give, this great advice about how women, we should love our bodies and, think about all the great things about your body. But I know that when I turn this camera off and I go stand in front of a mirror, I know all of the things that I am going to pick apart on my own body. And so I think the first place is just to start by saying, just in general, that we just have to start figuring out as women, how do we start, as we're talking about, how do we find those things within ourselves that we do want to celebrate? Start with those things that you are incredibly excited about and happy about, as opposed to flipping that and saying, well, I have this, we're all women here, so I'm just going to use the word that my ladies come in with, is how do I get rid of this fupa? And I'm like, let's not focus on the fupa. Let's focus on, you're going to build strong upper body. You are going to have, your skin is going to be glowing, and all of the things that we can focus on. And hopefully at some point that fupa will just become, secondary, something that we won't even think about anymore. But we will. But I think a lot of it really just start to embrace all of those things that you can enjoy about yourself and that you can love about yourself, and let that try to become more of the focus. And again, I know that that's very easy for me to say, because I too am a woman, and I too am human. And as soon as I get off, I'm sure there will be those voices that will say, well, what about that? And what about that? And I just have to remind those voices, well, what about all of those other good things? What about all of those other things that I can stand to love about myself?
I think that's some really good point. And all of you have talked about mental wellness. And I think that's starting to bridge that gap there. I know personally, I'm reading a book called The Wisdom of Your Body, which I think is helping me in many areas. But I think when we start to incorporate mental health into our wellness approach, this is where some of us like really get off track. Either we're really good at it, or it's really easy to do the physical stuff and the mental stuff hurts, or the mental stuff is really good, and the physical stuff, but may suffer. But Sarah, is there a way that you incorporate mental health? I mean, you mentioned being out in the outside, you mentioned going on hikes, getting in nature, doing those kinds of things. But is there something specific that you do to incorporate mental health into your own wellness approach?
I love that question because I actually feel that mental health is at the foundation of all of our health.
Yes.
And so much of our, whether it's nutrition or it's movement or it's a decision about sleep or all of these things, isn't based on knowing what I should eat, but rather how have I set myself up for success based on my belief systems or based on my values, some of that stuff. And so I think the mental health piece for me of, am I finding joy in my day-to-day life? Am I leaning into the stage of life in ways that, like right now, my life, I make things as simple as possible. And I love cooking. Like I am the type of person who could spend 2 hours chopping vegetables and making a gourmet meal. And it brings me so much joy to do such a thing. And I don't do that very much right now. And there's times where I do. There's times where my husband on a weekend will watch the children and I'll have some time to really enjoy cooking in that way. But the simplicity of we eat like 7 meals on repeat in our household. And the simplicity of how do I make this enjoyable but easy? And so that my day-to-day routine feels doable, feels simple, rather than creating stress for myself, because I think it's so easy for us to put expectations of, how we should do things, or, how a good mom shows up or a good, you know, spouse shows up or whatever the thing is. And so instead of what we should do, what do we actually enjoy? How do we make it easy? Are the choices that I'm making actually making my life better, or are they contributing to more challenges for myself? And so simple routines are so important for me. And I would say I simplify everything in my life just to make it doable. And that has come from a lot of coaching work that I've had over the years of, there are those 24 hours in a day. And if I want to maximize those, let me also just start cutting stuff out.
Mm. Yeah, Nicole, you're very much nodding and talking along. Obviously, you're resonating with that. She also mentioned guilt, right? So how do we overcome feelings of guilt when we prioritize healthcare? Because you've made it very clear that a lot of your current personal loving yourself is that boundary setting. It's that mental wellness, health and wellness that comes with doing those kinds of things. But how do we overcome the feelings of guilt when we're prioritizing self-care?
I think a lot of what I was agreeing with Sarah is finding that simplicity and finding what works. And, and I think as it relates to overcoming guilt, is that there are going to be those times that you have to, again, make that circle smaller and focus on yourself for a season and look at, how do I take care of myself? How do I make sure that I am the very best, the absolute best that I can possibly be? Because I want to be the best for my husband, because I want to be the best for my children or for my clients. And so looking at that, it's not necessarily taking on guilt or kind of walking in guilt because I choose to go to bed a little bit earlier. There was a evening that one of my kids was here at the house, and he and my husband were watching television. And I said, guys, I'm going to bed. And I could have stayed up. I could have, felt guilty because I was leaving the room and leaving my husband up, leaving my son up. But I knew that if I did not go to sleep, 5 o'clock the next morning when I had to get up and get myself ready to go to be a coach that, for my next morning class, then I would have been suffering. I would have been tired. I would not have been able to give what I needed to for my clients throughout the remainder of that day. And so part of, recognizing what we need to do and how we need to take care of ourselves is that we can't allow guilt for the moment to impact what we are able to accomplish in a longer term or a little bit further down the road. And again, as women, I think that it can be easy for us to take on that feeling of, I should be all things for everyone else, but then that leaves nothing for you. And then it leaves nothing for you to be half of what you need to be for everyone else. And so you really need to not take on what other people think that you should, and really think about what is it that you need to be able to be the very best that you can be in the moment and further down the road.
I like that. It's almost like a delayed gratification for even
Mhm.
just putting off the guilt. I love that. Nancy, your work is, you gave us a clinical definition of Reiki, but a lot of your work is outside of that. It manifests itself in physical health, but how do you approach that wellness for you and for your clients outside of the physical? Like, I don't hear you saying you send them to an aerobics class or to work at the gym. I hear you saying you're working with their energy, which is a little bit different. How does that show up?
A lot of it depends. I don't like to give blanket statements, but it shows up in that for my coaching clients, when they're talking about they want to make changes in their health and wellness, and one of their goals is to get out and do more. And we talk about what they want to do and referring to a gym, referring to walks outside, referring for nutrition is part of what they want. So that's how I do my referrals. Reiki's really different. Reiki is a technique for relaxing the nervous system, and changes come really fast. So people will come in a high anxiety state, and after Reiki treatment, their anxiety is gone. They're able to get up and move around and talk about how they felt before and how they felt after. And then we talk about what they can do to reduce their anxiety. And so
Oh,
they can have their own way of taking care of themselves. I'm a firm believer of giving people the tools they need to take care of themselves so they don't need to have my services anymore.
it's empowerment.
It's very empowering.
Yeah. So how did you get started in this? Who kind of inspired your journey to get you where you are? I
Do
mean,
you want to know the really funny part is? Okay.
okay.
So the really funny part I just want to talk about, I'll talk about Reiki and coaching. So when I moved here to Charlottesville, I was like the dog, open the car door and the dog's ready to go. So I was working and somebody said, you want to come and do Reiki this weekend? No idea what it was. And one of my coworkers was a Reiki master teacher and was giving Reiki classes. And I found out that I loved it
Mm.
and I really enjoyed it. So I continued up from level 1 to level 3, where I continued to incorporate Reiki with nursing, and I helped with organize at the hospice I was working at Reiki as part of the transition for end of life for the patients and families. And then fast forward, I found out about the coaching program, and it's what I've always done. I've been coaching without the credentials behind me. So I found out about it on Sunday. On Monday, I put an application in. On Friday, I had the interview, and on the next Sunday, I was in the coaching program.
Go
So
girl.
it's almost like I don't want to any spiritual or religion. It seems like my path has been divinely shown to me.
Mm. I love that. And the way we learn is a lot of times through other people and the things
Right.
that we experience. Sarah, your switch from general practitioner to very specific, how did that happen?
Yeah, it was really so I've been doing obesity medicine as part of my practice for really for the last decade. I came into my decision to be a doctor to support support this field of medicine, and we have really significant obesity in our family, and I never fully understood why some people struggled with it, why others did not. I saw this component of mental health and belief systems around food, which really plays a big role in the work that I do, but trying to understand what those hormonal imbalances were beyond just eat less and move more, some of the traditional advice that many of us, I'm sure, have heard over the years. And so, my practice in primary care, this was part of my focus. And so, I would see my own patients to support them with their weight loss goals. A lot of my colleagues would send patients to me for that. But it really made up maybe about 20% of my practice. So, a meaningful part. And I just didn't feel that I had the capacity to support patients in the way that I wanted to in the context of my former practice. And as you can imagine, I was at a large healthcare system, not different than UVA, Martha Jefferson, and I loved working as a primary care physician. But the challenges of you've got a 15-minute appointment and you're trying to squeeze all this stuff in, and I'll tell you, the patients hate it and the doctors hate it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to serve patients in the way that most physicians really want to be able to do. And so the decision to focus on this was, how can I spend more time with my patients? How can I create a program that is supporting them comprehensively? I had all these worksheets and stuff I would give my patients, and it's like, here, go like download all this information into your brain. But it wasn't really, the effective teaching and engagement and question and discussion. And so being able to move into that and really both designing something that was best helping me support my patients, but then also would align with my life. I start seeing patients at 9 o'clock most mornings instead of, needing to leave my house at 7 because Chicago traffic is so bad. And I would start at 8 and being able to take time off when it makes sense for my children. And so it's been such a fun thing because it's building wellness for others while also really keeping in mind my own life and my own goals. That's
Cool.
probably more than you bargained for.
No, these are great answers. Nicole, you've already shared a little bit of your journey and that the loss of your mother and realizing that your body needed certain things started you kind of on the journey. But was there any one person that kind of mentored you through that change and getting like your gym started and that kind of thing?
So I would kind of go back to 2012. A friend of mine was opening a gym, a CrossFit gym in a little town called Seymour, Tennessee, just outside of Knoxville. And I remember at the time, my husband and I, we had our 3 kids at home. We were also at the time, we were foster parents as well.
Mm.
And I had absolutely no desire towards working out. Like there was nothing about working out that made any sense to me, actually. And so a friend of mine, she was opening a gym, and I thought, I'll go and I'll be supportive, and that'll be that. And I happened to have won, and I say won because I didn't even sign up for anything, a free month of working out at this CrossFit gym. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And then after a month, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So much so that the following year I became a CrossFit coach and started coaching other women. And then again, fast forwarding to opening the gym, one of my kids at the time was getting out of the military, and he was making a transition, and he also knew that I too was in this space of needing to make a transition in life as well. I was not happy with my job. I had been working in the foster care and adoption world for almost 20 years and just was not, it was just no longer satisfying. And so with the support of my son, then about 20 years old, and my husband, they said, you enjoy working out, you enjoy helping other people, coaching other people, so why not open a gym? And that we did. But in that process, we opened with the intention that we wanted to be accessible for a more marginalized community here in Charlottesville, because CrossFit gyms can be very expensive. Traditional yoga studios can be very expensive. Even some of the bigger gyms in this town can be expensive. And if they're not expensive, they're not necessarily accessible from an emotional standpoint for more marginalized clients. And so we wanted to make sure that the space that we opened was financially accessible, but that it was also very emotionally accessible as well. And so, so as far as who has helped, my husband and one of our 3 kids are and were very instrumental in opening the gym.
Oh, I love that. Now, one of the reasons we are doing a panel here, and one of the reasons we meet as BWRT, is for women to build a supportive community. And one of the things that you have just expressed beautifully there is that you wanted to build a supportive community, especially for marginalized clients. But when we look at as women, kind of motivated to do our health goals and to stay motivated, Nicole, do you have any ideas or some things that maybe are go-tos for you that can help women build supportive communities to stay motivated for their health goals?
It's a lot of that answer is right in the question that you asked, and that's that word community.
Yeah.
It's building those relationships with other women, other individuals who are on a similar journey, and being in a space where you can really support and encourage one another. And again, I think that is what I've experienced, is that it's easy especially for those of us who are in the fitness world, who are very comfortable and confident to go into any gym and pick up a barbell, a dumbbell, pick up any of those. We can go to some of these bigger spaces and just walk in and do what we need to do. But in general, for a lot of us, myself included, what makes a huge difference is having that community, having a group of people that I know that when I go into this space, that there will be other people that will be doing very similar activities, people that are on a similar journey, and not just from a weightlifting standpoint. There's a running group that I'm a part of here in Charlottesville. And to be a part of that running community is also pretty powerful, because there are times when I know that there will be other women out at the same time running, and we may not even be running the exact same route or running the exact same time of day. But if I know that there's 1 or 2 other women who are out in Charlottesville running, and I'm out running, we still have that community that we are connected to. And so a lot of it is really building those relationships, building community, getting other people involved in your journey to help keep you accountable, but then also it gives you that space to hold others accountable as well.
I love that. I love accountability groups. And whenever I mention them, people are like, I don't want to be accountable.
Don't
But
use the word accountability.
I
Just
know, so I have to
community.
different.
Just say community.
Just say community. Does this look different, Nancy, than the work that you do? Because it sounds very individualized.
Yes, and during my coaching is to find out where their resources are. Who do they find initially? A lot of people going through changes don't want to get out into a big community, and they just want to have like 1 or 2 people, and identifying those people. And as Nicole said, when they find 1 or 2, it just grows exponentially. So starting with the small incremental changes for long lasting and sustainable changes.
Okay. Sarah, I know that you, go ahead. I don't even need
Yeah,
to ask you a question. Go for it.
no, I'm just excited to jump in with that, because I think this idea of community and asking for help, I think one thing many of us struggle with asking for help from others. And it's interesting because others really love giving help. And if we think about, if a best friend, certainly, but if a neighbor was like, hey, could you do this favor for me? Are you available to watch my kids for an hour? Asking for help is something that can be so challenging. And building our community, I think in our culture, people are not always we're not conditioned to ask. We're conditioned to believe that we should be able to do it ourselves, and that we can figure out a solution on our own, that we should be able to. And I think that piece, that has been really important for me. It's shown up a lot these last 2 days with the snow days. Um, Yesterday, a long story short, our nanny decided to leave abruptly. She lives in a fairly rural area locally, and wanted to get home before the snow started getting too bad. Um, and I had this really important podcast interview, and I was like, oh my gosh, like my top goal is her priority or his her safety, and I really wanted to prioritize that. But like, oh my gosh, this podcast guest is someone with whom I've really worked to schedule. And I just started texting all of our neighbors. We're relatively new to the area, and even newer to having owned in our current home. And so, and one of my neighbors who I know well, but we're not best friends by any means, her and her kids came over with 20 minutes notice and had a 45-minute play date with my children while I recorded a podcast in the basement. Um, and then I actually have another neighbor who I'm paying to watch our kids today, because our nanny unfortunately was in a small car accident on her way home yesterday.
Oh gosh.
Um, and she's fine, but just navigating, like, how do we ask our community for help? And people are so willing to help, yet oftentimes we are not willing to ask. There's shame that can come up and embarrassment. And I just want to encourage everybody to ask, because people love helping. It's such a wonderful way to support other humans, but we're not always good about asking.
Yeah, I heard it reframed and it really helps me to say, it's giving them the opportunity to be your hero, and people love to be your hero, and people love to do those kinds of things. And if they can't do it, they're probably going to say no. And if they're not,
Yeah.
they're like Nicole, working on their boundaries, or I mean, it's just there's all kinds of things involved there. This has been great. I may have one or two more questions, but before we close out, I noticed there's some activity in the chat. I can't see if there's actual questions in the chat. Is anybody looking at that, like Nadira or Ariel? Are there questions that we could pose to take from the chat to pose to the panelists?
I don't think there are any questions. I
Just
think we're just kind
comments?
of making some comments along the way.
Okay, good, good, good. Is there anybody, before I ask my last couple of questions, that has something that has really kind of sparked a question for you? Well, if not, then I'd like to wrap it up with some ideas on stereotypes about women's bodies and health. As going from young to old, as we age, there are some very challenging things around that. This could probably be an entire topic for an entire panel, but very kind of quickly at the end, maybe we could just kind of give a little bit of how you kind of see it and how you help work with people specifically. Nicole, you talked about women coming in with a specific idea of what they wanted to not see. And so how do you kind of help challenge some of those stereotypes for women, especially as they age?
Wow, I could go a couple different ways in answering that question. I think one stereotype that I will just kind of throw out is that, especially within marginalized communities, and when I say marginalized, I've kind of had to broaden my definition there, but what I mean in that is that, especially within the Black and Brown community, that we don't generally see a lot of Black and Brown women working out. We don't see a lot of Black and Brown women in a yoga studio. We don't see them in CrossFit gyms or other gyms per se. And so that is one of the stereotypes that I'm trying to kind of navigate, is that for Black women especially, that working out definitely needs to be something that is a part of what we do and how we take care of ourselves. Because the reality is that, and it's not a stereotype, but the reality is that we generally suffer from more of the different health issues, diabetes, heart disease, those types of things. And so we really need to, within our own community, kind of break down some of those stereotypes around working out and exercise and physical fitness and getting active. And so that is one that I'm, trying to navigate within the Black and Brown community. The other part, as just in general for women, that the other stereotype is mentioned, is that for women in general, that we should be, strength training and lifting weights. And that, again, society has kind of given us this picture that if women lift weights, we're going to become bulky, we're going to become manly, or whatever society says. And so just having to navigate those stereotypes with women to know we are getting strong, and that it is okay for us to be physically fit and physically strong, that we too have muscles. We were designed and created with muscles on our body. And so we should also strengthen those muscles so that, so that we can live a healthy, long, and productive life as well. So I would say those are the two big ones that I am kind of navigating as far as stereotypes go.
Yeah, how about you, Sarah? I mean, you're in obesity work. How about the stereotypes? How do you challenge those, especially for your women patients around health and as they age?
I think really focusing on function is so important to me. When we think about the role of our body, I feel like there's so much narrative in our society about size of our body. And we've moved, I think, in the last decade away from smaller is better. But so many of us have grown up in eras of, the thinner the better, the smaller the better. And recognizing that how those type of bodies are often achieved may not be in line with any sort of health behaviors. And so when we think about how is our body functioning for us, both in terms of health outcomes and metrics, are we seeing problems with our body? Is our body living up to our expectations from a strength and function standpoint? When we can lean into that piece of it and then starting to separate an exact number on the scale or an exact clothing size, that piece I think becomes really empowering to start to shift how we're looking and thinking about our bodies.
Mm, I like that. Nancy, do you have something to
Yeah.
add in that area as well? Or do
Yeah,
Nicole, you want to jump
May
in
I
real quick?
jump back really quick?
Sure.
I will allow it.
Yeah, thank you, because I think that that is an incredible point that Sarah makes as far as body size, because I would say that is, that is one that we also need to navigate as well, is that a lot of times women, as Sarah mentioned, that there's this mindset that there's like this ideal woman size, that there's like this normal size of what a woman should be. And what I have found, especially when you look at strength and conditioning, strength work, that it doesn't really matter what size a woman is, it's whether or not she feels healthy and strong. And so she can feel healthy and strong at a size 6, just as some of our Olympic weightlifters who are a size 24 and plus. And so it really does not matter about body size. It's really about how do you feel? And as Sarah mentioned, how is your body functioning? And so, yeah, so that's a huge one as well.
Cool. Nancy?
And just kind of the last part is we're focusing in on society of what's wrong with us. And through coaching is to look at the person and say, what's good for you? How do you see your body? What part of your body do you like? And then focus on that for a while and then see how they change the way they look at the rest of their body because they know there are some good parts. And the old expression is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Ladies, thank you so much. The way that you have shared your wisdom, your experience, and your insights has been very helpful. And it's clear that self-love, wellness, balance, they all look different for each of us at different stages. And the perspectives that we have, that it has been very helpful that you've all been very authentic, and it's inspiring listening to this. I hope that for the audience and for those maybe listening to the recording, that today's discussion has empowered us to reflect on how we define and nurture our self-love, maybe how we can prioritize our health, both physical or mental. And as we move through life's transitions, especially, that we need to give ourselves compassion. I heard so many actionable insights from each one of you. They were very, very clear. I like weight training and listen to my body, what I need, and to make sure that I see what's good with myself. These are all things that we've heard, have we not? I mean, we've heard them all. It's just practicing them all. So for sure, wellness is not one size fits all. I got that a lot today. And each one of us has the power to take small, meaningful steps towards more balanced and empowered life. If it's stepping outside or working up to 4 miles so that we can get on the Monticello Trail, or making sure that we work out with a group, whether we're with them or not. It sounds like there's some really good ideas here today. So thank you so much to our panelists, Dr. Sarah Stumbaugh, Nicole Hawkins, Hawker and Nancy Zammel for your time, your expertise, and your heart that you've put into this conversation. And to everyone who, I was not in the chat, so I don't know about the great comments, but when I see a bunch of stuff going through, I know that there's some really good conversation taking place. So that tells me things resonated. And for sure, reach out to these ladies either through social media or I'm sure you can find them through the chamber website. And to just, if you need help, my experience with all three of them has been wonderful, not just today. So I'm excited to see kind of how we can build a better community on loving ourselves. Please feel free to continue this conversation outside of this. And with all that, I am going to turn it back over to our co-chairs, Ariel and Nadira, for potentially some, I don't know, announcements or things that we've got going on here at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Andrea. And thank you so much, Sarah, Nicole, Nancy. If we can all give like a virtual round of applause. That was incredible and incredibly insightful as well. So I would love you all, as we're wrapping up, to, if you have links to your website or your social media or anything you want to share with our guests here, please drop it in the chat. And of course, we'll share it as we reshare the video and recording as well. And I did want to talk a little bit about next month's event. So if you're new to BWRT or new to our space, we have every third Thursday of the month a meeting. But March is a little extra special because not only is it Women's History Month, but it's also our Women of Excellence Luncheon. So it's going to be on Thursday, March 20th from 12:30 to 2:30. So a little bit of an extended luncheon from our regular schedule. But we take some time to celebrate incredible women in our community who are doing incredible things. So I know I can't see the chat, but I'm sure Ariel and Anne Marie are dropping some links there to register. We would love to see you there. But also nominations are open and they're open until the 28th. Is that correct? Of February? Perfect. Yeah, so we have 3 nomination categories: the Emerging Professional Award, the Distinguished Mentor Award, and the BWRT Women of Excellence Award. So you can find all the details on our website. And also, if you're interested in sponsorship, we have those available as well. And all the benefits, the breakdown of what is included is all in the link. But we would love to have your support, and we would love to show love and support for the women in our community who are doing amazing things. So anything else I missed in terms of Women of Excellence, Akira, Ariel, Andrea? Perfect.
We want to see you all there. We want to fill the room. Bring a friend. If you have any questions, reach out to myself, Ariel, Andrea, Nadira. We are here to answer your questions. We want to hear about what you want to see from us this year. We really just want you all to get involved. We want to be able to serve everyone, all of you women. And we really, really hope to see you next month.
And I do just want to add that Nicole Hawker was one of our previous winners for the Women of Excellence Award, and Nadira has been a recipient as well for the Emerging Professional Award too. So not only do we want to see you all next month, we also want to get nominations. So please, if there's any women in your life that are doing amazing things, we want to hear about it. We want to acknowledge them next month. So we're really excited about that.
And
Yeah.
to see a point about the nominations, the best nominations come in from people who know these people well. So if there's someone that you work with, someone that you just admire, we need, as for those of us who have to evaluate these nominations and to select our recipients, the best ones and the easiest ones to award to are the ones who have the most information. And so if you look at the criteria, these are women who mentor other people, who are involved in their communities, who are looking to make the life cycle of women in leadership long, and to bring women along as they go, and to foster the leadership of women here in the Charlottesville area in ways that maybe some of us who are just like got our heads down and doing things aren't necessarily doing. So when you think of maybe who mentored you or who inspires you, maybe get together with a couple of your friends or a couple of your coworkers to nominate someone, because when we have more information, we can evaluate them better. And it makes it just a little bit more exciting to see all the good stuff come through. So make sure you nominate some people this year.
Yes, so well said. And I just want to add one more note before I turn it over to Allison, who has some chamber specific announcements. But Sponsorship, it is a really good opportunity to support this group and support events just like this. It's also a really great way to increase your company profile amongst a really powerful and engaged group of professional women. So if you want to hear more, there's the link, of course. We're also looking for someone to join the committee potentially who may have an interest in sponsorships. So if that's your special interest and something that you're really engaged with and good at, we would love to chat with you. And
Yeah,
Andrea, I
like if
saw
you've
you
ever
come off
done
mute.
development work, or if you just like meeting a lot of people and you can pull that, we would love to work with somebody who's eager and has some knowledge base in that area.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. With that said, Allison.
Yes, hello everyone. My name's Allison Linney, and I'm the president of Allison Partners. But I'm saying a few chatty words because I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and so just wanted to pause and say a couple of things. One, I continue to be so incredibly proud of this group and everything that it does, and especially the volunteers. It is one of the most powerful examples we have of how the chamber works, how it grows leadership. Um, I can't tell you how excited my fellow board members are that Nicole has joined our board. And having experienced Nicole today, I'm sure you're like, wow, smart choice. And that is exactly how things happen. And so please spread the word on this group. If you weren't at the March lunch, it was incredible last year. It was one of the most meaningful things I've been to in terms of also for a large group of people, more than 75 women in a room who had a truly public transformative conversation about really hard things and race, and did it in a way that was the kind of dialogue we so desperately need in our country right now, regardless of where we are on everything. So it's happening in this group. So please be there. Please encourage others, though, because I think we're really missing some people in the community who could come to even appreciate the chamber just through the power of this group. So do everything you can to spread the good word about that. Thank you to our volunteers. Thank you to our panelists. I sit on a lot of Zooms, and this is one of the best, right? Like it was so special, and I'm just so sorry that people missed it. But it was open and give and take, and I am excited to pursue all three of your sites and your resources to find out more. So I'm just really grateful for that. And lastly, I just want to say things are really going well at the chamber. At the board level, we are making some incredible progress on how we work together as a board, really doing our own work at the board level, which is incredibly important if we want to do anything else. If you have questions about that, you can ask me, you can ask Nicole. Um, but just know that I am so hopeful about how things are trending for the chamber, what's happening in all of our affinity groups. And in many ways, it's because of the big work of organizations like this. So thank you for that. Thank you, Andrea, for fantastic facilitation. So, a panel like this doesn't go well if you don't have someone who's really talented at moving things along and helping with the dialogue. And then take a look at our calendar. Never forget that the chamber calendar has not just our chamber events on it, but other things that are meaningful within the community. And I know I'll be traveling tomorrow, but I know many of you will be at the event we have tomorrow for this is State of the Community, State of the Chamber. Anne Marie, please help me. April? Are we announcing that yet, or is that still in the planning stages?
I believe we are set on May 1st for that one, so that's really a meeting kind of for chamber members to get an update on all that good work that Allison's talking about, like where the
Right.
chamber is headed.
And to ask
what we can look
questions,
forward
right?
to
Like
this
if
year.
you're like,
Yeah.
okay, yay, Allison, I love that you're proud of yourself for your good work, but I still have questions. It's going to be an open dialogue, and that's the nature of our leadership now in terms of how we do things. So anyway, on that note, Anne Marie, did I do everything? I think I did.
I think there is some kind of event about how to be a great boss coming up.
Thank you. Yes. And thank you to the Chamber for always supporting all of us who do our things. I'm teaching a class called The Art of Being a Great Boss on Tuesday next week. And we do still have open registration. We have 45 people coming. We had 45 in October, and it's just been the most wonderful group of like humans, like all coming together and talking and stuff. So thank you, Anne Marie. That's lovely of you. But again, please spread the good word. like what's happening in this group. And today was so energizing to me, and I am grateful for that. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to our volunteers. And last but not least, thank you, Anne Marie, for holding us together like a boss. Any room we go into in the chamber, whether it be virtual or physical, either Anne Marie or Andrea is there, ensuring that all goes well. And for that, I am always grateful.
Thanks, Allison.
Yes, could not agree more. All right, everybody. Well, I dropped the Facebook group link in our chat. If you're not already a part of the Facebook group, we would love to have you join and we would love to see you there. But thank you all for joining us today. Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.